Hello, I'm Sarah Coates and you're watching i24 News. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is slamming what he calls the shocking anti-Semitic vandalism of a French cemetery, prompting a cabinet member to call on French Jews to come home to Israel. Over 100 graves were painted with swastikas in the east of the country, with French President Emmanuel Macron saying he'll crack down on crimes as France battles a fresh wave of hate crimes directed at Jews. Today, Macron visited the ceremony with protests against the anti-Semitic wave in France underway now. Netanyahu is also speaking out, releasing this video.
Something shocking happened in France. 80 Jewish graves were desecrated with Nazi symbols by wild anti-Semites. I call on every French and European leader to come out forcefully against anti-Semitism. This is an epidemic that endangers everyone, not just us, and it must be condemned everywhere and every time it raises its head.
Meanwhile, French far-right leader Marine Le Pen joined the i24 News Anna Cabana show on our French channel to speak after the swastikas were painted on graves at the cemetery in eastern France, blaming the rise on Islamic fundamentalists.
The rise of extremely violent anti-Semitism in neighborhoods was an anti-Semitism based on Islamic fundamentalism, and I believe that nothing serious has been done to stop it.
Tonight, thousands of people are flooding the streets of Paris and other major cities to denounce an increase in anti-Semitic attacks and hate crimes in France. The incidents, often coinciding with the Yellow Vest anti-government protests, are sparking fear for the safety of Jews in the country. Our international affairs correspondent Bianca Zanini has more.
The streets of Paris Tuesday evening, mass rallies protesting the latest wave of anti-Semitic acts in France. The country has seen a rise in hate crimes against Jews, culminating this past week. French President Emmanuel Macron condemned the latest incidents and promised action.
It's not up to the Jewish people in the Republic to defend themselves, but up to the Republic to defend them. I will announce the measures that we wish to take on Wednesday evening.
The president also visited a Jewish cemetery in eastern France, where 80 graves were vandalized on Monday. And over the weekend, prominent philosopher and writer Alain Finkielkraut was verbally attacked at one of the weekly Yellow Vest anti-government protests.
It is important to stop saying, oh no, it's not anti-Semitic because dirty Jew wasn't said. On top of that, the aggressors know full well that saying dirty Jew is against the law, whereas dirty Zionist is not illegal. So it must be made very, very clear this is an extraordinary case of anti-Semitic abuse.
But the French president on Tuesday maintained that penalizing anti-Zionism is not a solution.
I can confirm that those who, by their words today, want the end of Israel are those who want to attack Jews. I think, however, that when you get into details, the criminalization of anti-Zionism poses other problems.
However, this latest incident adds to mounting questions about hidden radicalized fringes within the Yellow Vest movement and French society in general.
I think the responsible thing to do would be for the representatives of the Yellow Vest movement to stand up and say, as our protests have been corrupted by anti-Semites, we will be suspending our protests. We will be organizing things differently. We do not tolerate anti-Semitism in our protests. But this is not the case, and that is really regrettable.
France is home to the world's largest Jewish population outside Israel and the U.S. Just a few days ago, the government announced the number of anti-Jewish offenses reported to police last year was up 74% from the year before, sparking fresh worries about the future of Jews in France. Bianca Zanini, i24 News.
Senior Polish officials are demanding an apology from Israel over comments on the alleged anti-Semitism of Poles in a row which has prompted Warsaw to withdraw from a summit in Jerusalem this week. Poland's Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki branding comments made by Israel's acting Foreign Minister, Israel Katz, as racist after he quoted the late Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir saying that Poles suckle anti-Semitism with their mother's milk. Hungarian leader Viktor Orban is now urging Poland and Israel to resolve their diplomatic dispute. Meanwhile, the Prime Ministers of Hungary, Slovakia and the Czech Republic are meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu in Jerusalem.
It's always better together with them than without them, of course. So I think it would be better that they would be here, and we have good friendship to Poland, as you know. Even we are close cooperation in the European level, and we have a good friendship with Israel. And when you have two friends having a discussion with each other, the only hope you can have is that they will talk directly with each other and improve the situation. That's my hope also.
Moving now to Asia, and Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan is warning that his country will retaliate if India were to launch an attack in response to over a deadly suicide attack in Kashmir last week. Now, tensions between the two nuclear-armed neighbours have risen sharply over the killing in Indian-controlled Kashmir, where 40 Indian paramilitary police perished in the attack, which has since been claimed by the Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed militant group.
government के लिए जवाब दे रहा हूं पहले तो आपने
My message to India is, firstly, you laid the blame on Pakistan without any evidence, without thinking what Pakistan was going to gain from the attack. If you feel that you will carry out any type of attack on Pakistan, Pakistan will not think of retaliating. Pakistan will retaliate. There will be no other option for Pakistan except for retaliation, except for striking back.
Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has touched down in New Delhi with a warm welcome by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi as part of a tour of Asia following his visit to Pakistan, where he signed a swag of multi-billion-dollar deals. Bin Salman is expected to announce further energy and infrastructure investments as he attempts to rebuild his brand following the murder of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi inside the kingdom's consulate in Istanbul, which is widely believed to be linked to the prince. I24 News Middle East correspondent Emily Rose reports.
Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman scheduled to touch down in India amid rising tensions with Pakistan. Earlier this week, a suicide bomber killed dozens of parliamentary police in the Kashmir region with fingers pointed at Pakistan-sponsored terror. Saudi maintains good relations with Pakistan. The prince just visited. After a personal plea to the crown prince, Saudi Arabia said it would release some 2,107 Pakistani prisoners and just invested $20 billion in its ally. Pakistan's foreign minister also addressed the UN to help ease tensions with India, denying any role in the bombing, but India still accuses the state of being complicit, as Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi warned Pakistan to expect a strong response. Experts say Saudi Arabia could diffuse tensions between the two nuclear-armed neighbors.
The attack that happened in Kashmir last Thursday is certainly something that India is going to raise with the Saudi Crown Prince, who are being told that the Indian side is hoping to have some sort of discussion where it will raise Pakistan's alleged role in this attack.
The Crown Prince's visit to India will also focus on trade and the economy, as Saudi Arabia provides almost 20% of India's crude oil. 2.7 million Indian expatriates live in the kingdom, and bilateral trade between the two countries is worth about $28 billion. India is hoping that relationship will grow.
What India is hoping to achieve at the end of this two-day visit is increased Saudi investments in various fields. The Indian government says fields like agriculture, technology, renewable energy, and infrastructure have been identified as potential areas of Saudi investment.
It has great importance. He will sign, the biggest economy deals with the Indian side, and also he will be in a position to let the world know that despite odds, he still have great friends there in Asia.
Still, the visit risks being overshadowed by the tensions between India and Pakistan. Emily Rose, I24 News.
And we're taking a short break, but when we come back, we'll go live to our correspondent in Tel Aviv with a war of words erupting between Netanyahu and his closest rival, Benny Gantz. Stay with us.
lead with tonight? Iran, China, Russia, D.C.?
How about North Korea?
Well, on Crossroads, we usually cover them all. I'm Tal Heinrich.
And I'm David Schuster. Join us each night for hard-hitting interviews, detailed analysis,
and the most important information you need to know.
In the Holy Land, there are wonders most people never get to see. I-24 News will take you inside the shadows and unravel the secrets of some of the world's most revered sites in a way you've never experienced. All access from every angle. Tune in to Sacred Sites 360. Only on I-24 News.
Our world is becoming increasingly connected. 6.5 million Wi-Fi enabled devices are now shipping every day. Global consumer internet traffic is growing exponentially, with 2.8 billion internet users consuming video at a breathtaking rate. We are creating breakthrough technologies that connect millions of people and billions of devices, and securing our place as the most trusted business in technology. We are Aeris, and we're redefining connectivity.
What is this show about, by the way? This show is called Man Bites Dog. How does that relate to just a philosophy? It doesn't. We're making it up as we go along. Great.
Thanks for staying with us. Let's go now to the Latin American country of Venezuela, and its military is on high alert for people trying to cross the border illegally after US President Donald Trump called on the country's armed forces to back opposition leader Juan Guaido. Now, Trump today tweeting a number of times, even referring to senior military commanders by name to defect. Defence Minister Vladimir Prino responding during a public appearance, saying the armed forces will remain deployed and on alert along the borders to avoid any violations of territorial integrity, adding, "We reiterate unrestrictedly our obedience, subordination and loyalty to President Maduro." Guaido, who's declaring himself as interim president, backed by a number of countries, including the US. Veteran Senator Bernie Sanders is giving it another go, launching a second campaign for the White House. Now, his announcement coming 4 years after he surprised Democrats with a strong bid for the party's 2016 nomination. The independent senator telling a US radio station now is the time to move that revolution forward. Terry Moran has the story.
This morning, Senator Bernie Sanders is making it official.
Together, you and I and our 2016 campaign began the political revolution. Now it is time to complete that revolution and implement the vision that we fought for.
Sanders sent this message to his massive list of supporters, letting them know he's getting back in the ring. His improbable run in 2016 gives him an edge in name recognition for 2020. He started that race as a little-known independent senator from Vermont.
I know that if I do this, I start off as a significant underdog.
But his progressive platform, universal Medicare for all health care, free tuition at state colleges and universities, $1 trillion in infrastructure spending, caught fire as thousands flocked to his rallies hoping to feel the burn.
We, in fact, need a political revolution.
Sanders struggled to win African-American voters in states like South Carolina, and he ultimately conceded to Hillary Clinton at the Democratic National Convention.
I move that Hillary Clinton be selected as the nominee of the Democratic Party for President of the United States.
But in a crowded 2020 field, early polls show Bernie Sanders near the top of the contenders.
The United Nations is holding grave fears for around 200 families who are trapped in the last pocket of territory in Syria held by Islamic State, with these families reportedly being used as human shields by militants who remain in the village of Baghouz. Now, while it may be losing its territory, the ideology behind ISIS is not going anywhere, and the fear is that the war against the organisation will now move from its former caliphate possibly to the streets of Europe. I24 News defence correspondent Jonathan Regev has the story.
Members of the Syrian Democratic Forces fired towards Barghuz, the last remaining enclave of the Islamic State. The American-backed militia is reportedly planning to assault the area in the coming days.
It should be formally announced sometime, probably next week, that we will have 100% of the caliphate. But I want to wait for the official word.
Does this mean the war against the once mighty organization is over? Probably not. It just means it is now changing its pattern.
The coalition's hard-won battlefield gains can only be secured by maintaining a vigilant offensive against a now largely dispersed and disaggregated ISIS that retains leaders, fighters, facilitators, resources, and the profane ideology that fuels their efforts.
The danger now comes mostly from the Islamic State's foreign fighters. Many of them are from Western countries, and they will carry their skills and ideology back home. President Trump called on his European allies in a tweet to take back their IS fighters and put them to trial at home, or else they will be released. The US and Europe seem to have a common interest here.
This is one of the major challenges ahead of us, Europeans, to keep the Western Balkans route as close as it is just possible and put obstacles on the way in order to avoid them coming back to Europe.
There is, however, a major point of disagreement between Washington and Brussels regarding the American future role in Syria. President Trump hopes to get the American troops out of the area as soon as possible, but European leaders see this as a grave mistake, and so do most analysts.
The American troops on the ground actually are the only guarantee that we have in Eastern Syria to stabilize Eastern Syria. All the countries who funded or said that they will fund stabilizing Eastern Syria, they paused their money now.
The long-fought war against ISIS in Syria and Iraq may come to its end with the upcoming liberation of Baghouz, but as it seems, the end of one war will also be the beginning of the next one. Jonathan Regev, I24 News.
Let's go now to the upcoming elections here in Israel, and the leader of the Israel Resilience Party, Benny Gantz, who's also Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's closest rival, unveiled his list in Tel Aviv just a short while ago ahead of the April 9 snap elections. Now, Israel Resilience Party leader Gantz launching a scathing attack against Netanyahu, saying that while he was fighting in the military, the Prime Minister was in television studios and taking acting classes. Netanyahu responding, saying, "Shame on you, I risked my life time after time." And let's go now to our diplomatic correspondent, Mike Wagenheim, who is in Tel Aviv. Mike, Gantz launching this personal attack on Benjamin Netanyahu. Tell us, what more can you say about this?
Gantz went for the jugular tonight. This was the first time he really came out and attacked Benjamin Netanyahu's character, attacked him personally, not just his particular political stances or the way he's handled the criminal investigations against him, going so far as to call, basically infer that he's a fake, a phony, somebody who went to America to learn English. He gets up in designer suits and appears on television and forgot about the country. Netanyahu has already responded in kind, as you mentioned, saying that he nearly died in battle, and Gantz has no right to make those kinds of claims. But this is now personal for Gantz and Benjamin Netanyahu for sure.
Okay, and Mike, Gantz is calling on Yair Lapid for a joint run. And with just 2 days left, is this still possible?
I think it might be Gantz calling on the leader of the centrist Yesh Atid party, Yair Lapid, to run together as a joint ticket. Polls show that together they would get more votes and more seats in parliament than they would running separately. But it's been a matter of ego. It's been a matter of different infrastructure, different priorities for the two. Gantz, though, right before he left the stage tonight, said as soon as he got off stage, he would give Lapid a call and try to work something out and just get down to business. Lapid, moments later, responded with a tweet saying he would leave no stone unturned in trying to overthrow the government of Benjamin Netanyahu, and presumably that was a response to Gantz, and he will, in fact, take his phone call and see if something can be worked out before the Thursday night deadline to form a joint ticket.
OK, Mike Wagenheim there in Tel Aviv, thank you for your updates throughout the evening. Now, a day after 7 British MPs dramatically quit the Labor Party in protest of Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, fresh polling figures show the British public is behind them. Eilon Levy reports.
I cannot remain in a party that I have today come to the sickening conclusion is institutionally anti-Semitic. We will all sit in Parliament as a new independent group of MPs.
Britain is waking up to its latest political crisis, 7 members of Parliament splitting from the Labour Party to sit as independents.
British politics is now well and truly broken. And in all conscience, we can no longer knock on doors and support a government led by Jeremy Corbyn or the team around him.
A rupture that's been a long time coming, dissent brewing since 2015 when hard leftist Jeremy Corbyn took control of the Labour Party. For a long time, moderate MPs fought for their political home, but ultimately concluded that home is unrecognisable. Fresh polls suggest the British people back the splitters, a solid 56% saying they were right to leave Labour.
We did everything we could to save it, but it has now been hijacked by the machine politics of the hard left.
An identical figure, strongly or somewhat agreeing Labour has been taken over by the far left, only 9% disagreeing. Now 40% of British voters say the new independent group best represents the British people, only 23% saying Labour, the same political base that backs Jeremy Corbyn as Prime Minister, with more preferring Chuka Umunna, one of the MPs who's leaving Labour, as Prime Minister over him.
The leadership has willfully and repeatedly failed to address hatred against Jewish people within its ranks.
And the public accepts Labour has an anti-Semitism problem. On a scale of seriousness, 46% of Britons say Labour has an anti-Semitism problem of 4 or 5 out of 5. In the British press today, warnings to embattled Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn that more MPs are willing to quit, and speculation this is stage 1 of a bigger split. But on Britain's left, rage the Labour moderates have undermined Corbyn's leadership. The party's youth branch calling the new group cowards and traitors.
I think you have a responsibility to go back to the electorate then, and in by-elections, fight on that platform. And if you're no longer a Labour Party MP, you're elected as a Labour MP, you should go back to the people.
The knives have come out for Corbyn before, and he's survived attempts to depose him.
Good morning, how nice to see you, and goodbye. What's your message to MPs who might resign, Mr. Corbyn?
If moderate MPs can't save the left from within, can they reform it from without? Eilon Levy, I24 News.
Iconic fashion designer Karl Lagerfeld has died at the age of 85. The creative director of Chanel passed away in Paris on Tuesday after being ill for the last few weeks. He's regarded as one of the world's most influential fashion designers. I24 News' Sarah Williamson has the story.
What will the fashion world do without Karl Lagerfeld? A household name and one of the most prolific designers of the 20th century has passed away in Paris at age 85. Heading 3 major labels up until today, Lagerfeld's influence on the fashion industry is unparalleled. Starting his career in 1955 as an assistant to Pierre Balmain, Karl made moves in several French fashion houses, including Chloe in 1964 and Fendi in 65, before picking up the biggest accolade, Chanel, in 1983. As the pace of fashion wavers, so did his designs, despite a love-hate relationship with the industry.
You know, fashion is not needed. There may oral problems in the world who may be more important, so this is not the problem, but it's an industry. And, you know, fashion has to go with time. If fashion doesn't go with time, fashion would be lost.
Lagerfeld has never been one for modest statements, nor a squeaky clean record free of controversy. Speaking on French television, he sparked outrage by evoking the Holocaust, taking a swipe at Germany's policy that sees open borders to migrants.
One cannot, even if there are decades between them, kill millions of Jews so you can bring millions of their worst enemies in their place.
Despite this provocative nature, he was a man loved by most. In 2017, even being awarded the Medal of Paris, the city's highest honour. Karl's health fueled speculation earlier this year when he was absent from the Chanel Haute Couture show, something the fashion house attributed to him being tired. Up until then, Karl had never missed a catwalk bow.
I don't know, the feeling we are missing something. We are used to always seeing him come out at the end of the show, but today we share our thoughts with his family and we hope that he will recover very soon.
And today, after weeks of rumoured ill health, the fashion world is in mourning over the loss of one of fashion's most iconic creatives.
And that is all we have time for this edition of i24 News. But of course, we are continuing to bring you all of the breaking stories. So do go ahead and visit us online. That's i24news.tv. And we have all of those stories on Facebook, Instagram, and of course on Twitter. I'm Sarah Coates. Thanks for watching.